Hello, 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 what ho! Welcome back to another exciting adventure of Radio Free Anarchy and Travel Mateus Finley. I'm your host, Travel Mateus. This is a comment response to Plane Reality, or Paul. And it is a response to my first video response to comments that Adam was making. So I wanted to instead of typing the response and forgetting about it, I wanted to just respond this way. So he basically just starts out, he says, interesting thoughts. In all honesty, there are many things that are leading me down the path of, for lack of a better word, simulation. I think this realm has been run by some kind of AI. All right, I'm just going to stop right there. And again, where is the basis for your making that comment? Like, what in your experience can you point to? Can you point me to? It's only going to be story, unless when we get together, you can go magically, snap your fingers and show me that thing. So I'm not disagreeing with what Paul's saying. I'm just trying to elaborate on the concept of making statements about, existence and meaning and being and all of these kinds of metaphysical concepts. I see artificial intelligence that we are experiencing now, that we've been experiencing for the past 75 plus years, I see an analogy, I see a correspondence to human existence with artificial intelligence. The only creators that we ever experience in existence ever anywhere is the animal kingdom, is biological life. Animals make nests, make dens, make dams. Animals create out of pre-existent material. Human beings create out of pre-existent material. We are, as human beings, everything that we represent or present, we are the only creator that we know. So in order to then say, well, beyond us, who created us? That, in my opinion, that question doesn't follow. Everything has just always been. This is all it's just always, well, where did it come from? Have fun with that. But in our experience, right, there's the five senses: sight, smell, taste, hearing, touch. Those are all physical. But there's one beyond the physical called thought, intuition, consciousness, awareness. I am conscious right now. I am the one right now saying what I'm saying, and it's happening within nanoseconds of the thought to the speech, right? So I'm going to snap my fingers. But I didn't snap my fingers. But now I just did. You see that, like, I didn't say I was going to snap my fingers, but I just snapped my fingers. I can think a thought that doesn't imply the action. I just thought of something to do and I didn't do it. But I can think of doing that thing and then my body does it because I'm intentionally directing the body. That's my conscious awareness. However, when I daydream or when I think subconsciously, I don't say unconscious, because unconscious to me is I've been physically traumatized and I'm knocked out. That's unconscious. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about I'm aware and subconsciously there are things happening, programs running, operating systems, virus protection, all of that stuff. But if I were to imagine that the source of all of these things is the mind, is the universal consciousness, then each of us is an AI of that source. And if you have 1,000 people talking to ChatGPT right now, that's kind of like the scenario that we have with the universal awareness. Because when I've dealt with ChatGPT, I've offered it corrections, and it even asks, are you happy with my answer? No. How would you modify it? It's learning through me. Anyway, there's correspondence between AI. We are authentic intelligence. We are not an analog. We're natural. And an analog is something that derives from the natural that wouldn't exist without the natural. That's an analogy. So a camera is an analogy of the eye. A calculator is an analogy of the mind. Everything that we experience is dependent upon the activity of a human being in an action. You can then take that logically backwards and say, okay, so then if this computer is an analogy of this, then is it possible that you, travel, are an analogy of something else? That's possible, but only by conceptual logic. Because if I said, can you produce that thing that you want to say that I'm a part of or that I'm derived from? You can only do it through a story. All right? Okay. Paul says, I think we are AI, but with limitations on our intellect. Okay, yeah, I'm okay with that. Resets, mud floods, rewritings of our histories, the probable likelihood we are species with amnesia of ancient history. The history books were supposedly rewritten. That was kind of a weird sentence. I feel like resets are a reboot of the program. A species with amnesia can only make sense if God did it, or a reboot of the program. Then we all move on with a new history like nothing happened. Then we start looking and finding things that make no sense within the timeline we are given. That's kind of like the Mandela effect, maybe. He says, just some thoughts I've been having lately. I don't think a benevolent God who loves us made this real. No one who loves their children would make a place where everything is trying to kill them or harm them, where everything must murder something else to live. Well, I mean, that's an interesting question of ought and is. Because that is the way it is. So I'm not sure that we can say it oughtn't be this way because that's the way it is. Unless you go into this idea of pacifism and veganism, where you do no harm. Like, what harm are you never allowed to do? Can you not chop down a tree for firewood? A live tree? You know, like, what if my mind is going to what Paul, his question is, my mind is going to this existence of where every single person is supposed to level up to 100. And if 99.9% of everyone is leveled up, except for a few little stragglers, because, you know, their story is their own story, but they finally catch up, as soon as everyone knows everything, then it all just goes boom, and we are now in that Edenic state that we believe is what the primordial existence, you know, the prehistoric existence was. The Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve, the first two human beings standing face to face, naked. You know, like, what did that world feel like, smell like, sound like? You know? You could just walk up to a tiger. You can just walk up to a cobra. You can just walk up to a scorpion, pick it up, and it's not going to defend itself. You can, you know, you're not going to get stung. You're not going to get bit. You're not going to get mauled. The only place that world exists is in a story, because all we ever know from time in memoriam is death and taxes, is murder, is conflict, is strife. But even here, Paul says, you know, I don't think a benevolent God who loves us made this real. Where are you getting that concept of benevolence and God and love? Like, what does that mean? Because if you think about an historical Christian perspective, even Catholic or Protestant, the philosophical question is, if God knows all things, if God knows everything that's going to happen, why did he make the first step such that it would lead to the current state of affairs right now? Like, why did he make this universe if he didn't have to? That's a philosophical question that's based upon, in my opinion, a literal understanding of a person called God. You have to have certain things in your mindset about God in order to say, why did you do this? Because if you don't have a conception of God A, B, or C, then you're not going to ask the question to correspond to that problem. Does that make sense? So he says, to me, that's more of what the devil would create. Again, the concept of devil. I don't adhere to, I don't resonate with that. You are the devil. You are Satan. You are God. You are Christ. You are King David. You are Odysseus. You are Zeus. You are Apollo. You are Poseidon. You are Aquaman. You are Batman. You are Neo. You are Truman. You are Barbie. You are Ken. The devil and Satan are characters, are characterizations, are caricatures, are persona of the human condition. The word that we get devil from is the word diabolos in Greek. Diabolos, 2 words. One is a preposition, dia, which at times it can mean something that goes through, something that's placed alongside. And then balos, or balo, which means to throw. So diabolos is someone who throws something in your path to cause you to stumble or trip. And that's you. Don't you do that? Don't you self-sabotage yourself? Can I be any more redundant? So the devil, like this whole thing about demiurges, like this whole Gnostic story of demiurges and these concepts of good and evil, of a benevolent God and a mischievous Loki character that thwarts God's plans. Those are just stories. That are about humanity, and then someone comes along and says, oh, they used to think, those guys way back then used to believe that the gods lived up on the mountains and they created the lightning, and that, like, no. Like, who told you that? Who told you they thought that that stuff was real? When they were just creating their version of Netflix streaming series. They were just telling stories. And I think the powers that be took those myths and said they used to believe these were real and true because they didn't know how to explain things naturally. Well, I don't believe that. I believe that the scientists of the past probably understood our existence more than we do. I think that people who control the information know exactly how this world works, and they're just not giving us that information. And we're now so tied down to the system of occupation and vocation that we're so busy that we just don't have the time to be in tune with reality the way that the ancients were. The last thing he says is, have you heard of the idea of loosh? And I think I said no, but he hasn't responded back. All right, so that's going to wrap up this latest exciting adventure of Radio Free Anarchy. I'm your host, Travel Mateus. Please make sure before you leave to hit that Fonzarelli, smash that like, leave me a comment, please. All of that is free support so that YouTube can perk its little antenna up and figure out, oh, we need to promote this guy's channel because people are interested in listening to this content. If you guys don't do that, my channel is not going to go anywhere. And I guess if that's the way it is, then that's the way it is. So I've been your host, Travel Mateus. Until next time.